What is up, everybody? What is up? How are you doing? Happy Sunday night. Let's see if we can get this angle somewhat better. We are using an iPad for the first time tonight, and yeah, I'm not liking it as much. Laptop is acting a little weird. We have BRYCE KOON of Geaux247 in the house, going to be on the show imminently. Very excited about him coming on the show. We're going to be just covering a lot of different stuff there's so much stuff about this LSU team that really requires a kind of in-depth delving, so to speak. And so we'll have Bryce on in a bit here and go into that. Hopefully your Sunday's going good. I know this is kind of like the only sports we seem to have outside of LSU baseball, not LSU softball anymore, is NBA playoffs. And of course, the WNBA with Angel Reese and another Caitlin Clark story between the two. Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark once again. Now, I wouldn't say going at it or something, because it was more of like Angel Reese did not like the foul, goes at her, and yeah. Just a heated situation. Happens 10 times in an NBA game, but it's headline news for the WNBA. And everyone's all freaking out, going nuts over it, taking sides. Okay, maybe this is the stuff that will actually prop up the WNBA, because it's not going to be the product itself, but maybe it's this stuff, these type of storylines that will make it more of a success financially. But yeah, it's very. Anyway, we could not be more thrilled to welcome Geaux247's BRYCE KOON to the show. Bryce has been writing for Geaux247 for how long, Bryce? How long have you been writing for Geaux247?
Man, it's been can you hear me, by the way? I just had to
Of course, you were good. Sorry for that opening, and thank you for being with us, brother.
No, man. Gosh, it'll be 2 years in 2 years. No, I'm sorry. Well, I've lived in Baton Rouge for 2 years in June. But I'm going on the year number 3. So yeah, you caught me there. That was confusing. Because we lived in Georgia still when my wife finished up her job in Georgia before we ended up moving halfway through the year in 2023. So yeah, I got the first year covering was Jaden and Malik and BT that year, which is quite a year to be spoiled on the beat. And then obviously, and yeah, so it's been a lot of fun.
Man, I'm happy you're here with us. Bryce doesn't just do the LSU beat. He also has a Braves podcast at the Chopaholic. Make sure to follow that as well. So definitely support that work by him. But I have seen you in person, but I've never formally met you, Bryce. Maybe at practices, something like that. How's it going, man? How's spring been treating you and your family? How's everything going?
It's been good, man. We've got just rolling along. I mean, as you know, the weather down here in Louisiana is heating up as of late. So that is it's getting brutal. And I'm a guy I'm from the South, Lon. So it's I'm from Georgia,
yes.
And I've entertained the South a little bit. I live in different parts, but this Louisiana heat will get you. So no, man, we're doing well. Everything's going well. We're enjoying it, and it's been good. It's been a good year. I can't believe we're almost the end of May, and It's going to be SEC media days, and before you know it, it's LSU Clemson. I mean, everything just rolls right into one another. So I'm excited for the start of football season. But yeah, it's everything's been going pretty well.
You just said it, and I can't wait for it. I mean, just we're in the talking season where there's a lot of projections, a lot of what is this team going to be, a lot of talking about what's on paper and all this stuff. Man, I just cannot wait for the games to be played. But we're still so long from that. So much to be figured out about this team. But you mentioned it, Bryce. You're from Georgia, and I can tell by sweet molasses, that accent, that sweet molasses accent. It's a commentator's voice, brother. You've got a commentator's voice. I don't know if play-by-play is like maybe like a future like goal for you or something. Is it? But you've got the voice.
Yeah, no, I mean, so before I took the job covering LSU, I was kind of your ultimate, I guess the best way to put it is like freelancer, just like a lot of different things. And so one of the things I did was a lot of play-by-play in the Atlanta area, did Georgia Tech baseball on the radio, did, just here and there, just, I don't want to call it odds and ends, but just, freelancing and contract work, did a lot of that. So, that really is keeping that alive, doing a little stuff around Louisiana, some stuff down at Tulane there as well. But yeah, no, so that's definitely, I guess the best way to put it, kind of part of the arsenal, if you want to put it like that. That's definitely something that I have the capability to do. And yeah, I get that. Whenever I talk to people or talk to like high school kids, they're like, "You're not from Louisiana, are you?" Like, it's still Southern, but it's not. It's more of that, like you said, that molasses, that drawn out little Southern drawl. That you hear bits and pieces of in Louisiana, but it's a whole different culture.
Oh, I love Georgia, though. I love the state of Georgia, man. I love Atlanta. Love Atlanta. I love all these little nooks and crannies all over throughout the state of Georgia. I mean, people don't even REM are from Georgia. There's a band called Deer Hunter from Atlanta that are kind of not around anymore, but they're so awesome. There's so much great Mastodon. There's so many great artists from the state of Georgia. But how did your media career begin? And Bryce, how did this long and winding road lead you to Baton Rouge?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. And I think, Lon, the biggest thing is I tell people is that I did not, there's no shade to people who do. It's just I'm not a product of the big journalism schools. You know what I mean? Like that's not my path. I went to a small school in Northwest Georgia, in Rome, Georgia, Berry College, and just got involved. Knew was that kid who, as we all one day have to be told, Lon, whether it's at the professional level or middle school, high school, little league, whatever it is, we have to be told, hey, you can't play anymore. You're not good enough to play anymore. And that was kind of my deal. I knew I wanted to stay in and around sports, and so really kind of picked up working at the smaller school. Since we were such a small school, there was a really hands-on opportunity to be involved, whether it was play-by-play, whether it was, like the SID type of role, those communication roles, and then obviously the school paper, radio station, stuff like that. So, that was something that I think really kind of let me know, hey, you can kind of make this a career, like if you want to, and open doors and open my eyes to, just the sports media world. Because for a lot of people, I think you could kind of sit there and say, okay, sports media is kind of locked into, your Fox, your CBS, your big multi-billion dollar companies. But, kind of seeing what you can do outside of that realm, it's kind of where I got the idea to kind of launch, my own stuff there as well. And, hey, if I'm not going to get an opportunity, because I go to a big journalism school where they just farm out people, that do this for a living, I want to kind of create my own thing. And so that's where we started with that. And really got heavy into covering recruiting in Georgia, which I wouldn't say I get into arguments, but I get in good debates with people about the high school football talent between Georgia and Louisiana. Louisiana is loaded. Don't get me wrong. It's crazy when you start to look at the per capita, but Georgia, as you know, obviously, covering
Loaded.
Loaded. Yeah, it's loaded. So, being in and around the Atlanta area definitely helped, just building some relationships, getting, to some cool interviews with some guys. So that really kind of kickstarted. And like I said earlier, really just kind of taking any opportunity there was. If it was, hey, we want you to, call a game somewhere in, one of those nooks or crannies of Georgia, like you mentioned, or we want you to come cover this high school game. That kind of took off. And then with 247 Sports, they had an opening covering Georgia Tech. And so that was something that, it's a smaller market team, still Power 4 ACC, but it was a smaller market team. And man, I like to think that, if I would have done that, I wouldn't be able to kind of move forward with what I'm doing now. I think that's the best way to put it. Is it would have been it was just one of those things where I was kind of able to move forward, and just really kind of probably did more that was outside the job qualifications in a good way, like just try to go above and beyond and get noticed and stuff like that. And so I did that for 3 years and just kind of freelance, covered a lot of Georgia Tech stuff, and kind of, in a small market essentially. And I say small market, we're talking about Atlanta line, but Atlanta is not necessarily the Georgia Tech market. It's more of the Georgia market, but just in terms of that fan base, and loved it. It was fun. And, I went back to a game last year. Just that program will always mean a lot. The relationships that I've had with people that are still on that staff and stuff like that, and even some of the fans that tune into some of my content now. So yeah, did that, and then obviously kind of got a call about there might be an opportunity or an opening elsewhere. Would I be interested? And as I think everyone should say, yeah, always be willing to listen and hear things out. You never know what can come of that. So
Absolutely.
it's funny. I will front myself out here, Lon. I was given an opportunity to rank the three programs that they may have some availabilities. And the three programs were Tennessee, Ole Miss, and LSU. And I will admit, I put LSU last.
Oh my God.
Only because I had never stepped foot and this is too recently married, had never stepped foot inside of the state of Louisiana. So I knew nothing about it. Like I had been to Ole Miss before. We've got some family and friends that live up and around the Knoxville area, so it would have made sense, to be around close to people and stuff like that. So, but that saying, I don't know if I don't know if to mention this on any of the shows, but my first ever visit. So all throughout that, I was doing like an FCS team in Georgia, Mercer University. I was doing their football on the radio too, and so the bye week, the bye week that Mercer had, I told the bosses, I said, look, we're not going to do the Ole Miss move, but I'm interested in LSU. My wife and I just need to go there and visit to just get a feel of what the place is like. Because like I said, I had never driven into the state limits of Louisiana. So it's 2023. You can probably tell where I'm going with this. It's November. And my first ever trip to Baton Rouge is the weekend that Brian Kelly's first year and LSU beats Alabama. So I wasn't at the game, but
the vibe enough, man.
The vibe, yeah, man. The energy around the area, and to be honest, man, we couldn't get a hotel. The closest we could get a hotel was Gonzales, which is not terrible, but like it's not Baton Rouge, like it's not the outlet malls out there in Gonzales. So long story short, it was crazy. It was a lot of fun. And we left and said, hey, let's do it. And so we've been here since we moved here in June of 2020, I guess 3. No, Kelly's first year was 22. I'm sorry. So so we moved here the next summer. And yeah, man, I mean, it's I tell people, like my wife's parents have come down for a game. My buddies have come down for a game. My parents and family have come, and my wife went to Georgia, and it's that St. Athens is a unique place. I know LSU doesn't get up there too much. It's a really cool environment. I will say, Lon, I was there in 2013, the Zach Mettenberger, Aaron Murray game, which is a legendary game. Which LSU lost that game, but a back and forth, great game, great environment. But I say all that to say is, man, just from a passion standpoint, I tell LSU fans this because I think it helps to have an outsider perspective. Because look, when you've grown up in Louisiana or you've been an LSU fan for a long time, you watch LSU. You might not catch the games. You might not be able to go to other games and experience other things. And it is a very unique fan base in the sense of the passion, and it's just you don't see it everywhere. And so I tell people, like, anytime you get to go to a game, anytime you get to experience, even if like I said, you don't get to go to the game, but you're just in Baton Rouge on a Saturday for a big time game, it's unique and it's special. So it's been a wild ride. It's been a lot of fun. But yeah, that's just kind of the Cliff Notes version of my background, a little bit of just how it all happened. And definitely blessed to be doing what I'm doing. So I don't take that for granted at all.
Man, it's been cool to see you come out of I was like, oh, who's this guy? And then I've seen Tristan Key's interview this last little bit. Like seeing you kind of making the rounds on all the big shows. Like it's been cool to see you make that rise. I don't think the word outsider would apply to you anymore whatsoever, friend. Uh, what would you describe as like kind of your style? Maybe like of content creation, your
Yeah.
style of reporting or content creation.
Yeah, I mean, I think, getting my start in the recruiting world was definitely beneficial because I think this business is so predicated on relationships. And look, when you build relationships with, a recruit and you go cover his games and like, I mean, there's several recruits that, maybe they're a football recruit and they're getting, big offers, but you're going to a basketball game and you start to know his parents. His parents start to realize, hey, this guy's not just in it to break a story. He wants to get to know things and stuff like that. And so I think that really, from a style perspective, kind of really was what got me to where what I'm doing now. Like just building these relationship with recruits because then obviously when those kids get to campus, you have, a network of people that you can get, glean information from or that you can talk to people and they have that built-in trust factor. It's not manufacturing something out of necessarily thin air, if that makes sense. And usually you've
Mhm.
built that over the course of 2-3 years when they were in high school. So I think that aspect in terms of reporting has definitely helped me. And then obviously in terms of the specific content, I did mention earlier, I didn't go to a journalism school, so I didn't graduate with a sports writing or sports journalism degree. It was very much like the creative side of things. So stuff like this, shows, on camera stuff is really, I think, and was talking with someone today, about, I guess, my style, the way you put it. That's really, truthfully, I think where it probably comes from for me is just the comfortability on camera, whether it's like the play-by-play broadcasting, the analysis part. So that's been something that I've really enjoyed, kind of bringing that spin onto things with LSU. And then last summer, I did a little fun series over at Go247 where I took every single, I guess it was every single pass rusher that was returning and like broke down like clips of like their film. And so like, what moved worked against this guy. So it was kind of funny. We did a piece on Braden Swinson. I talked about, why I felt like he could be a guy that could break out and obviously, has a great, great senior year, last year. And so all those things is just like, I look at it like this, Lon. I think that we're all at heart, we're kids that love this sport. And I try to keep it as much of, I try to keep it as much of, my friends and I, we sat at lunch in school, middle school, high school, and we talked around the table, about like our sports debates, who's better here,
Yeah.
what's this stuff like that. And I think that relates to people. So I think that's kind of the style that I portray. Look, if you want, suit and tie type of stuff, there's great places to go get that. That's awesome. I think if you want, I feel like if you're watching what I'm putting out, my goal is to say, hey, you know what, like that's how me and my friends talk. Or I was talking to my buddy about this the other day, and look, he's talking about that. So it's more for the I don't want to say the common folk, but it's more of just like the laid back, have fun, and keep it fun. Because look, I mean, if you view this as a job, let's just be real, long. We're not. This is not a job. This is awesome what we get to do. We're blessed to be able to do what we do. So it's just one of those things where you have to enjoy every single day, and you have a lot of fun with it. And I think bottom line is you just you don't take any of it for granted.
Absolutely not. And I love how you were saying that Swinson broke out. And once again, another Georgia guy
Yeah,
taking over here at LSU. Arden Key, another Georgia guy taking over at LSU. So, there's kind of a theme here. Another Georgia guy right in front of us taking over at LSU. Weeks and
yeah.
his other two brothers. A cavalcade of Georgia here with LSU. Uh, Bryce, what do you like about the new landscape of, I guess you'd say, college football media, where it's more online driven? That there's podcasts over print media now. There's
Mhm.
forums. You kind of get those instant reactions across the country. Sometimes ridiculous opinions or situations even designed
Yeah.
purely for clicks. Um, what would you change if you could?
So I think what I like about it is just the availability to be, I don't want to say be your own boss, but do what you want to do. If that
Yeah.
makes sense. Like just the ability, like we're doing right now, to hit live and I mean, hey, who knows? Maybe one day but there's no TV time. We're not working in a 15-minute interval for national commercial time, or you don't have an hour and you can't go over that type of stuff. You can, whatever medium you want, you can utilize. And I think I like that about the college football media landscape, is the availability. Now, to that
Me
point,
too.
is it harder? Yeah, I think so, because it's very saturated. There's a lot of voices out there on different subjects and whatever you want to do. But I think just the ability to, like you're doing, like I've got right here, to take a microphone, put it into your computer, have some type of camera on your computer or exterior, and hit live and build your own brand. That didn't exist when I was younger. I mean, that didn't exist. So I think that's the best part of it. What I would change, ooh, I like that so much. I think the part that I would change is probably this idea, and I mean, I think you can relate to this a little bit, is that independent media isn't less than because it's not attached to the hip of a massive corporation, if that makes sense. Like,
Yeah.
if you're independent media, I mean, who's to say that you can't necessarily grow? And look, people are growing all the time. Like, there's massive booms in our industry of that. So maybe it's something that's already been changed, I guess. But just, I guess, for the few people that feel like, well, if that's not this, if that's not what I'm used to, then it can't
Yeah.
be right, or it can't be legitimate. And look, there are, as you know, as we all know here, there's a lot of entities that, um, you know, farm for engagement and different types of stuff. But I think that just in terms of the changing of stuff is like just that knock, because I think it's fun. And when you get that creative flexibility to do what you want to do, that's when you really kind of think you kind of see people gravitate towards that. And to the credit, there's a lot of outlets that are starting to recognize that more, of like, hey,
Yes.
you don't have to go to, I'm trying to think. Like, I know University of North Carolina has a great journalism school. Just different places. And you don't have to do that and then go do this and then do that. And you don't have to take that internship. Like, you can pave your own way. And so I think really, and so you asked me what I would change. I think it is changing maybe a little bit. Not as fast as a lot of us would maybe want it to do, but I think it is definitely changing in the terms of just having something that's different and having something that's new, not be shamed on. Maybe that's the best way to put it.
Man, I mean, I think you just said it beautifully there, and it's kind of crazy that you said that, because I think I've seen it kind of change right before my eyes, because
Mhm.
even with our own stuff, I remember the first time we broke news that Bo Pelini was going to be fired, um, probably about 18 hours before it happened. And I remember the entire internet was like, the tweet blew up, but everyone was like, "You are just full of it. Like, this is some clown with like 200 followers. Who's this guy?" It was like, late 2020 or something, and it happened. But like, no one said, "Oh, he was actually right," or anything. You've actually seen that change after a few years, where you've seen independent media sources actually credited for breaking news, actually kind of given a spot at the table, given credentials. You've seen the White House do that too with political media. So it's really the landscape of all media, but also sports media. It's changed rapidly before our eyes, just since the pandemic. Really, I think
Yeah.
that was a big moment for all of that.
Lon, let me ask you, because I don't know. Obviously, did you start pre or post pandemic, or with
Um,
LSU Odyssey?
I started writing. I mean, I was writing everything, but I started writing LSU stuff specifically in 2018. I just
Okay.
loved, and it was just on Blogspot, but
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
it started gaining some traction. And I started joining some of these chat groups on Twitter, and it started gaining some traction. And then you know, it was mid 2019 season. I'm like, this is just, wherever this goes, this is just so fun to do. We're getting our own website now. Let's go for this. And so we've been at it ever since. And so really have kind of seen it, all of this shift happen. It's been pretty insane for me to
Yeah.
see it happen, for to see someone like T-Bob now joining Barstool Sports,
Yeah.
not independent media, but just somebody what was kind of more small time when I was starting out, and now seeing his rapid rise, just very deserved, very cool. There's just been a lot of weird changes in media that I think most of them have been good, though. I think most of them have been good because, like you said, there's less gatekeeping nowadays.
Mhm. Yeah, no, I agree. I think there's less gatekeeping, and it allows you to, like, if you like a certain team sport, like, you can just build a brand around it and you can tailor it however you want. Like, if there's someone, let's just throw a school out there, like, let's say someone is a Miami fan and they like, hey, I really like film breakdowns. Well, you can build a whole channel around Miami football film breakdowns, and that
Yeah,
has its own unique spot. And you can build your own channel around Miami recruiting or whatever school. And so, yeah, no, I'm with you there. I think it's changed for the better, and like you said, it's allowed for a lot of people who maybe, I don't want to say, like, because T Bob's good at what he does, but I don't want to say people weren't good at what they did, but they're not built for the professional mold. You know what I'm saying? I guess that's the best way to put it. So they're able to find traction in their own careers, and a really great opportunity, which he should be quite the addition to that team up in at Barstool.
it's literally perfect for him, man. It's perfect for him. But Bryce, are you concerned about AI and what it could do for you, or how it could affect like you, me, all of us as sports media creators?
It's an interesting question. I think that, we're already seeing some aspects of it be utilized. I guess the best way to put it is now there's little bits of it that you can kind of tell, that that's the human elements maybe taken out of it. But I think the race, there might be a race line for you to, not you in particular, just as a person generally, for a person to really establish themselves as a voice in that said field, to where it might be utilized like AI in certain spots, but people are, hey, I want to come to this person for this type of stuff. Like I was saying earlier, like,
Yeah,
if you can establish yourself in that, then I think that helps out counteracting or counterbalancing what AI can bring. Now, for just general news droppings, yeah, I think we could see that. And I mean, people are not necessarily overly concerned with this the one thing that's gotten away in print journalism, I know, is like this the standard game recap. Like,
yes,
odds are a lot of people watch the game, right? So it's, you're not really doing that. But like you were talking about, the instant analysis, like if you have some really good opinions or insight, um, people might say, you know what, like, that's what I'm subscribed to this forum or subscribed to this platform for. And so that, I think, if you find that niche, you can counteract it. Now, for just the general consensus, I think AI could definitely take some stuff like that over, which in the end, if you have to have a game recap and no one wants to write it, maybe that's maybe that's good for you to have that type of thing, because we all watch the game, right? So it's
yeah,
something to have.
man. I just think that is something interesting. I think we are kind of in the right business when it comes to AI because it's a human game, and people want the human reaction to that humanity. The rise, the rise and the fall, the success and the failure. You see Tom Brady winning all these Super Bowls, then you've also seen him lose these Super Bowls. Like, you see the
Mhm.
greatness and the best of and the worst at times of all these athletes. You want to see kind of the same with the media. And so it's very more personality driven. I don't think we'll be affected much, but maybe like print and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Bryce, what kind of record do you think Brian Kelly in for 2025 LSU? What kind of record do you think Brian Kelly has to achieve this season in order to kind of keep the Wolves at bay?
Ooh. Uh, Lon, I think there's differing opinions on. Well, first off, you have to establish what is success, right? And that has been very. I think that conversation has been diluted a little bit when we talk about college football, because for a lot of the fans that want to kick and scream and yell, it's, well, national title or bust, and that's just not realistic every single year. But also with the 12-team playoff, potentially what you have to go through, that's not also not realistic. Like, you look back what Ohio State did this past year, or even Notre Dame to a certain, like, that's impressive. They even just got there. So there has to be, the performance has to be lauded. Whereas 4, 5, 6, 7 years ago, when you get the 14 playoff, and even as far back as the BCS, yes, the onus on you to get to that final two might have been more difficult. So I will say, I don't think the increased opportunity necessarily should change the expectations. I think it makes it a little bit harder because, yeah, you get there, which is great, but now you got to win 3 or 4 games against some really talented teams to be able to be the final team standing. So how many games does Brian Kelly need to win? I've really kind of flirted, and I'll be real with you. I've kind of flirted with, this idea of playoff or bust. I do think to keep the Wolves at bay, you really have to make the college football playoff. Knowing what this team has, this group has invested into this, we don't talk about it a ton, and I don't know how realistic it really was, but getting Garrett Nussmeier to come back is a storyline we're not really talking about as much, especially knowing how weak that quarterback class really was. So, when you have a guy like Garrett Nussmeier at quarterback, it's going to heighten expectations. When you revamp the entire defense, it's going to heighten expectations. When you go and get some real weapons, you feel like in like Nick Anderson, Barian Brown, stuff guys like that to complement your Aaron Andersons, your Trey Greens, and all those other guys. That they have done everything in the offseason to where there shouldn't be necessarily an excuse. Now, you know as well as I do that just because you do all these things on paper doesn't mean that it's going to materialize as a 12-0 season, or something like that. But I think the expectations, probably both inside that building and outside, should be, hey, we need to be playing meaningful football in the month of December. So where do you sit the game count? I mean, Lon, I'm the belief that at some point we're going to see a 9-3 SEC team get in the playoff. I don't know if that's LSU this year, because I don't know that you could lose 3 games and still have quality enough wins in the eyes of the committee to get in. It'd have to be a really weird, like you'd have to have like 3 or 4 teams on LSU's schedule outplay expectations. Like Florida would have to be very, very good. South Carolina, Oklahoma would have to be like very good to where it's like, hey, they had like 8 games against like top 15 opponents. And I don't know if that happens. So I would say around that 9 to 10 win mark. And look, if you go 10-2, you make the college football playoff.
You're in.
And even if you lose, you lose the first game. I know a lot of fans won't be happy about that, but I think it's just a different time in terms of gauging what is true success. Because look, if we're only going to say that real success is defined by national championship winners, then it's what Kirby Smart, Dabo Sweeney, and now Ryan Day, right? Because Mac Brown retired and Nick Saban's no longer coaching. So it's those 3 coaches. Okay, those are the only successful guys? No, that's not what that means, So it's just I don't know. I like Brian Kelly a lot. I'm a fan of Brian Kelly's at LSU. I know there's a lot of naysayers to that, but I definitely think the pressure's on, and I think any respectable person would acknowledge that, and he probably would too. Maybe not necessarily as publicly, but privately, yeah. There's pressure to perform, and because this is LSU, it's a place you should be winning, and you should be in the playoff.
I mean, it's absolutely true. I mean, it's absolutely dead on. Brian Kelly, he's changed so many things about LSU for the better, culture wise, but maybe on field, the team is lacked physicality. Maybe on the field, the team has lacked some of that aggression, some of that dog. Hopefully the 18 transfers we pulled in are gonna help boost that. But really, Bryce, it's difficult to even tell where this team is going to be. But I think it's probably going to be a team that's going to be led by this offense. Look, kind of like the success or potential disappointment. Any type of potential for this team, I think it's going to be completely dictated by how this offense goes. Offensive line, including underline that. But is Nussmeier the quarterback position? Probably obviously the most important position in the game. We have the best quarterback in college football, correct?
Yes, I would say in terms of proven production. Yeah, I'm giving that to you. Yeah.
And do you think, I mean, proven production, but do you think maybe like in big games, do you think is Nuss the best quarterback still in college football?
I'm going to have to go through the other quarterbacks. I will be honest with you. I'm excited for that week 1 matchup because I do think that Cade Klubnik is a really good quarterback.
Oh, yeah.
And so, look, I mean, you go back to last year, right? The A&M game was disappointing. I'm not going to put that all on the shoulders of Nussmeier. That was just and I categorized it afterwards. That was just a organizational letdown, organizational failure. Like that was, I don't think you can pin that on one specific person. It was just everything that went wrong in that second half. So there's that. The Alabama game was another, which is not good, a back-to-back, maybe organizational failures. And then the Florida game, man, they just couldn't get out of their own way. So I don't know, Lon. I mean, I think he's definitely got to be in the conversation. I think we'd all like to see, I think if you're watching him and you say, okay, what needs to improve? I've said this, since the start of the offseason. Brian Kelly talked about the decisiveness factor with Jaden Daniels from year 1 to year 2 was a massive, massive jump. That to me is the biggest piece for Garrett Nussmeier because it's not a question of talent. He's got the arm talent. He understands how to the game. He's very cerebral. He knows football. He's a football guy, football family. He knows that. It's more about that internal clock and the decisiveness and knowing where you want to go with the football before it's snapped. And I'm not saying he didn't know that. I'm just saying when you're playing in College Station with 103,000 screaming fans, you better know, because if you don't, what happened in that second half is going to happen. So, to that point, I think, not to belabor it, but I do believe that he is in that conversation at least. And within the SEC, I think he's the top returning quarterback in the SEC. Outside of Cade Klubnik, and I'm getting ready to do a list for my own show here, but I'm probably missing someone and offending somebody, but I can't really remember outside of guys who have shown those flashes and have backed it up a little bit. And returning guys, I can't really recall anyone because, Arch Manning should be good, but we haven't really seen a massive sample size. So I think, and it's fun we get the week 1 matchup. Klubnik versus Nussmeier is that's gonna be quite the battle.
Probably top 5. I mean, at the end of of all said and done, probably the top 5 teams, right? The 2 top 5 teams right there.
Yeah.
It's gonna and probably a slew of first round picks by probably this time next year. We'll be saying that, but are you seeing any evidence, Bryce, through spring to make you feel confident that Joe Sloan will take that next step as a play caller?
Yeah, I think that there's elements to what Joe Sloan has talked about in the press conferences, and then what we're able to kind of glean off of in spring ball. That look, hey, it's kind of weird to talk about that this team is going to be better at running the football when you saw all the guys that are now on NFL rosters off of that starting offensive line, or at least in minicamp and OTAs. It's kind of a weird concept, but I think maybe cohesively as a unit they can be better, and that's just going to help. Yeah, at a place like LSU, there's always pressure, right? And I think Sloan understands that. I believe Kelly understands that. Scott Woodward, all these guys know that. That's not a surprise when you don that polo, when you sign that contract, you know what you're signing up for. It's a whole different beast. So there's definitely pressure in that sense. But I think that getting Garrett Nussmeier back for year 2, if he can develop in some of those ways that we talked about earlier, that's going to be a massive piece to the puzzle. And then just this offensive line, playing better cohesively is going to open up a run game to where, Lon, I don't think we really truly can really explain. I don't care who your quarterback is, and LSU's had some really good ones, and they nearly did some crazy stuff in 2023 with Jaden Daniels. But what Jaden Daniels did in 2023 is an outlier. That shouldn't be happening. They went 9-3 and finished 10-3 in the season. That shouldn't be happening because you can't be that predicated on just signal individual guys. And I think LSU not being able to run the ball last year just really closed off a lot of things for them. And they knew it. I mean, look, we're talking about it on the shows, and media is talking about it in general. Everyone knows. In the building, they're not dumb. They knew that was a struggle for them. They couldn't do it. But in week 7, week 8, there's not much. You are who you are. And Brian Kelly said it multiple times, and I think fans got frustrated that there's nobody else walking through that door. So offensively for Joe Sloan, if the run game's better, I expect the offense to be better. I expect it to be more balanced. I expect it to be more dynamic. I think they have pieces in that backfield. Caden Durham should be really, really good next year. Caleb Jackson, provided some really good insight this spring into maybe his mentality and how it was really hard mentally to go through what he did last year with a lack of opportunity. So, didn't even talk about Harlem Berry, who is just dynamic in every, I don't care what type of, what classification he played at. That kid, that plays no matter where you're playing. So they've got weapons back there, line. I think if the run game is better, you're going to be able to see Joe Sloan maybe have his full war chest at his disposal, which maybe he didn't last year. And it's too early to tell. We could be sitting here next May, and if the offense is just then it's probably, you maybe look more towards that coaching booth. But right now, I think, you got to give him the full deck of cards to play with. You can't play with a card or two short. And if he has that and they're good, then I mean it's pretty good. Lon, it can't be one of those things where people are like, well, he had better players. Well, yeah, that's the whole point, right? You gotta recruit well and coach well, and it makes everybody look good. That's how this whole thing works. So I like Joe Sloan. I think that he's got an opportunity to really, and even too, we saw kind of maybe some rumblings of head coaching jobs this past offseason. if Garrett Nussmeier's that mock draft came out where he was going to the Saints at 1, like if he's a top 5 pick and some guys have some really crazy good years, like he's going to be a hot commodity probably on that coaching market this time next year.
Absolutely. I mean, but also, could we be talking? I mean, you mentioned the running game, and I love that you brought that up because I think if we can run the football this year, LSU, it opens everything up. And you saw a lot of misdirection run schemes throughout spring. You saw a lot of counter. You saw a lot of pulling of the guards and tackles. Could we be talking 12 months from now, Bryce, saying, hey, last year, Alex Atkins, that was the most important hire for this team, for this guy?
I think Alex Atkins was a home run hire, just from knowing people who have been recruited by him, knowing people who have worked with him. He is, first off, a phenomenal resource, right? Like a resource for Brad Davis to have, a resource for Joe Sloan. It's just another great mind in that room. And I think when you're at a program like LSU, one, you can't be scared to add really great minds to your creative your creative philosophy. You can't do that. Everything can always help. And so I don't think ego's an issue there either. Like, I mean, I think Atkins completely understands where he, what his role is. But no, man, I think it's going to help the run game. I think it's going to help just the development of the offensive identity. And, too, this is a guy that was on staff and helped, was a large part of the plans when a guy like Jordan Travis, who LSU saw too much of that one, those 2 years, but a guy that like was mature and was a veteran player and knew how to step up in big games. And, we talked about this, like, I think Garrett Nussmeier has better God-given talent than a guy like, Jordan Travis, but what we're talking about just needs maybe more fine tuning. That's a guy where Alex Atkins has been around that and can come in and help with some of that. So, no, I think that you have a point there. I mean, Atkins could be a really big weapon. I think he's going to be a big weapon in terms of recruiting and just the relationship building with these guys and that tight end room in general, which has a chance to be really good. So, there's definitely some traction to what you're talking about, to where he could be a guy where you look back at the season and say, man, that was super underrated. Like, I think you could probably look like week 5, week 6, LSU's undefeated or trending in the right direction. There'll be people nationally be like, oh my gosh, I forgot Alex Atkins is on staff down there. Like, man, that was a great pull by Brian Kelly to get him. So, I don't look too much into that firing or the letting go or however you want to put it from Florida State. I mean, I think it was more of a scapegoat situation, to be honest, of just, you got to make a move to keep the owners, the admin, the fan base happy. And that was kind of the move they made. So, no, I like Atkins a lot.
And it was a wrong move because LSU just got him, and now we're retooling. And Lance Guidry as well. Lance Guidry doing the same type of role, complementary, but for the safeties, for the defensive backs, really in total. But just a few more questions here, Bryce, and then we'll get you out of here. But I know from listening to you, it was maybe like 3-4 weeks ago. It was right before we got Halsey. Yeah. It was maybe about 10 days before we got Halsey. And I know you were worried as much as I was about this previously bone-thin safety unit, but now you add A.J. Halsey to a group that's got Tamarcus Cooley, Gilbert, Toviano, Joel Rogers, and Spears. Is safety now one of the defense's strengths, in your opinion?
I think in terms of strengths, I love the depth, because I think it puts you in a position, Lon, to where you don't have to play somebody that's not ready to play. Regardless of whether they want to hear that or not, you don't have to force a square peg into a round hole. And that feels like something LSU, I mean, I've only covered the team for 2 years, but I've been an SEC fan my whole life. One, they've never had to do that previously, but they've had to do that a lot of recently, it feels like. So I think that you just have a situation to where Halsey is going to give you a very high floor. Like, I don't know, and I've said this multiple times, I don't know what the ceiling of this unit is. I think it could be really good, to your point. Could it be the strength of the defense? I think if we're talking about the safety room being the strength of the defense, then the expectations have just moved so far into what maybe we have them right now. But I think it just puts you in a spot to where, look, I love Deshaun Spears. I think he has every aspect of what you want out of a safety. I've covered that kid since high school. He's got it. I like Joel Rogers. I like Javian Toviano. I like these players, but if they're not ready, they don't need to play. And I'm not saying they're not ready, but I'm just saying if that comes to fruition, that's why you went out and got Halsey, because you got to make sure that you've got the best starting 11 and let them battle it out camp. And if If a Deshaun Spears beats out, or a Toviano or a Cooley beats out AJ Halsey, that's awesome. Like, you can't recruit in fear of the transfer portal. Your job. This is a business. Everyone knows it. It's pretty public. You've got to go out and win football games. And so I love the addition of Halsey. That being said, I do think he's going to be one of your starting safeties when you roll into Clemson their week one. But I love the addition. And to that point, could it be a strength? We'll see. Maybe, Lon, I'm more in the seat of where I got to see it to believe it with this defense at this point. But I do think it strengthens the depth, and it gives this team a little more flexibility to have real competition on the back end.
Safety, man, it's one of those spots for LSU that's just been so bad for so long. I mean, it's really been since Grant Delpit left the program. It's been just down a cliff since then. I think Jay Ward is probably the only just even good safety I can remember for the last 5 years. It's been bad. But I think if you nail down those safety spots, Bryce, you can really set Harold Perkins and Whit Weeks free in this defense, and really let those pass rushers pin their ears back. And Blake Baker, it'll be a Blake Baker defense finally, with some safeties at the back end. Bryce, thank you so much for joining us, brother. Hopefully we'll get you on again and chop it up football wise, and if not, we'll see you at fall camp, brother.
Yes, sir. I appreciate it, man. It'll be here before we know it. Thanks for having me on.
Oh, we're going to be dying in the heat. I can only imagine it right now. Oh,
it'll be great.
It will be amazing. I know. Like, I cannot wait to be there. Holy crap.
That's awesome. Appreciate it, Lon. Thanks, man.
All right. Take it easy, Bryce. Thank you, brother. Bryce Koon, everybody. Bryce Koon of 247. Really love that conversation. Really love talking to him. I don't know too much about Bryce. I really don't. And I think Bryce probably, maybe he doesn't know too much about us. And maybe hopefully he found out a little bit about us today. Hopefully he saw a little bit more of who we are and what we're about. And maybe, we're able to make another LSU friend. You can never have a shortage of friends to talk LSU football with. So I hope you enjoyed the conversation. I did. Bryce is an absolute badass. Trying to get this damn thing off the there we go. Bryce is a good dude. I'm not, obviously I'm not everybody's favorite person. Obviously covering LSU, you're gonna make enemies, or there's gonna be people who just don't like you. But I would rather, people like at least get to know what we've done and then make the decision not to like us or whatever. But or at least talk to us, first before not liking us. So I kind of a personal mission of mine to kind of talk to as many voices, as many people that I can, that people, especially that I've never talked to before, like Bryce, or like we had before on the show, Zach Nagy. We had Zach Nagy on the show just, what was it, like a week ago. And we'd never had them on the show. We'd had like Moscona a few times. We'd had Geaux247 a few times. T-Bob's been on the show. T-Bob, by the way, is going to be on the show again tomorrow. T-Bob Abear for a goodbye show. He will be joining LSU Odyssey for a show tomorrow. So make sure you're ready for that. Buckle up for that, baby. But I really just want to have as many different voices, as many different opinions on this show as possible. I want myself to be challenged. I want my information, my sources, my credibility. I want all of it to be challenged. I want my audience to be challenged. I want LSU 2025, this team, to be challenged by our own takes, by what we show, by what we're able to glean from the practices. I want it all to be under a microscope, and I want the best to beat the best. And that's how you make a championship team. That's how you make a championship business. That's how you become a championship human being. And so I really love conversations like these. And you didn't see too many fireworks or people disagreeing really there too much. But I think it's because there's a lot of very heavy, necessary, obvious truths about this LSU squad. So really, big thank you to Bryce for joining us, and thank you for everybody who watched. It looks like we got 120 here, but then I can see over 300 were watching on Twitter at one point. That's just at one point, and then it looks like 80 or something on YouTube. So not the. But hey, I mean, I've seen some audiences for shows I expected to dwarf ours, and their numbers weren't even this close. So you know what? I will take it as a win. We'll take it, brother. Thank you, Bryce, for coming on the show. You heard that sweet molasses Georgia accent for almost an hour. He gave us a lot of time. We really thank him and appreciate him. Thank you for Go24. Almost called them Goo247. Thank you to Go247 for having Bryce join the show, and thank you guys for watching. And have a wonderful rest of your night. Go Tigers, baby.